Okay, so have you ever actually sat down and thought about who keeps, like, a church service actually running smoothly?
Mm,
I mean, besides the obvious, the pastor
right.
who makes sure that, like, the sound system doesn't decide to start, blasting static during a prayer,
Yeah.
or, the guest speaker doesn't have to wander around in the middle of their sermon trying to find, like, a glass of water.
You're thinking about the often hidden in plain sight Verger,
The Verger.
the unsung heroes behind the scenes at a lot of religious institutions.
I love that, unsung heroes, yes. So, listeners, get ready because in this deep dive, we are going behind the curtain on this, honestly, surprisingly fascinating career path.
Mm.
And we've got a ton of insights from RoleCatcher. It's like having this, like, super-powered career coach in your pocket. And you don't even have to be, like, religious to find this interesting.
No, not at all. This is way more than just what happens, on a Sunday morning. Think of it more like the Verger is like the ultimate stage manager for all the like really important events that happen in a church.
Ooh, I like that.
They're the ones making sure that everything runs smoothly, weddings, baptisms, funerals, you name it.
So they're, like, setting the stage for, like, life's biggest events.
Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. But so what does that actually look like day to day? Because RoleCatcher defines a verger as someone who performs administrative duties for churches and parishes, ensures equipment maintenance, and supports the parish priest or other superiors. So we're talking like spreadsheets and sacraments all in one.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that blend of the practical and the ceremonial. Like, imagine 1 minute you're balancing the church's budget, and the next you're like lighting candles that are centuries old for a Christmas Eve service.
Yeah.
It's, connecting generations through this really simple act.
That's actually a really beautiful way to think about it. It's a powerful image. Okay, so we've got this really interesting mix of duties, but what kind of person really thrives in that kind of an environment? RoleCatcher's Guide actually walks us through a typical workday for a verger at different experience levels, and they start with the verger assistant, which is where a lot of people get their start.
Right. A Verger assistant is all about that hands-on learning.
Yeah.
Okay, so picture this. It's your first week on the job,
Oh, no.
and the microphone cuts out right as the guest speaker is telling, like, this really moving story. You, as the Verger assistant, you might be the one who has to go up there and troubleshoot the tech issue while everybody's
Oh,
waiting.
gosh, I'm like getting stressed just thinking about it.
Talk about a baptism by fire.
Yeah, that's high pressure even for like someone who's good with tech. I feel like that's where the like staying calm under pressure thing comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, faulty microphones. You could be assisting with the setup for a wedding where like tensions are already high.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe even helping to like comfort a family during a funeral.
Oh, wow.
These are really delicate situations that require a lot of empathy, and grace under pressure.
So it sounds like you're learning not just about like the technical stuff, but also how to like deal with all of the emotions that come with like being part of a community.
Exactly. And those are skills that are valuable no matter what you do, right?
100%. Okay, so we've got the verger assistant who's really diving into the thick of it. But then how does that role like evolve as you get more experience? Like, what does it look like to become a full-fledged verger?
Okay, so now things get really interesting. So you're going from assisting to overseeing, taking on a lot more responsibility.
Okay.
So remember that church budget we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
RoleCatcher points out that a verger might end up being in charge of all of those finances, making sure that the church has all the money that it needs to serve the community.
So from like fixing microphones to managing money, that's like a big jump.
It is.
That's like being like the COO of a small, organization.
And it's not even just about the numbers. You're also kind of becoming responsible for like the building itself.
Right.
Think about it. A lot of churches, they're home to these incredible works of art and architecture. Like, some of them date back centuries.
Yeah, that's true.
RoleCatcher even mentions like overseeing the restoration of stained glass windows. You're like a steward of history.
That's amazing. It's like you're not just changing light bulbs, you are like preserving these pieces of the past. And I bet that sense of responsibility, it extends to the people in the congregation too, right?
Oh, absolutely. So a verger might work really closely with the clergy to organize events.
Okay.
Everything from fundraising dinners to like holiday celebrations, making sure that everything runs smoothly for everybody.
Okay.
And they might also be mentoring newer verger assistants.
Oh, right.
passing down all that knowledge.
So you're talking event planning, building management, financial oversight, and spiritual guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder RoleCatcher says that one of the downsides is like long, irregular hours. I'm starting to think Verger is like a code word for superhuman.
Well, every job has its pros and cons,
That's fair.
and we'll get to those in just a minute. But really, it's all about finding what works for you. And, if you're someone who likes a fast-paced environment and no 2 days being the same, then being a verger could be really, really rewarding.
I can definitely see that. But let's be real. There's got to be some downsides. Even superheroes have their kryptonite. So downsides, what about them? Because RoleCatcher, they mentioned some potential challenges, things like long and irregular hours.
Right.
And having to work in all kinds of weather.
Yeah.
I imagine that's not always super easy, especially, if you've got like a family or just, you want to have a social life and things.
Yeah. Being a verger often means working evenings and weekends, especially when you've got, weddings, funerals, special services. Imagine a Christmas Eve service and it's snowing. You're probably not sitting at home by the fireplace drinking hot cocoa.
Yeah, probably not.
But for someone who values flexibility and, finds a lot of meaning in their work, those kind of unique hours, it could be a really good fit.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's all about how you look at it, right?
Right.
So instead of dreading a snowy evening, you're part of something kind of magical.
Exactly.
Treating that warm and welcoming space for the community.
And let's be honest, who wouldn't want their office to be in a place that's filled with all that history and beauty?
Okay, that's true. I mean, that
No.
would not be your typical Monday morning commute.
Right.
That's for sure. But what about the physical aspect of it? Because I'm imagining you're carrying boxes of hymnals. Maybe you're rearranging furniture for different events. Maybe there's a leaky roof you have to deal with. It can't all be candlelight and stained glass.
Right. It's not all glamorous, that's for sure.
Right.
It can be physically demanding sometimes. Remember, you're responsible for taking care of the entire building.
Yeah.
And some of those buildings are really old. We're talking hundreds of years old.
Right.
RoleCatcher even mentions that you might have to climb ladders to do things like change light bulbs because the ceilings are really high.
Oh, yeah?
Or even check on those beautiful but kind of finicky pipe organs.
Yeah, those things are their own thing, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
I'm getting flashbacks to trying to hang Christmas lights at my parents' house when I was a kid.
Right.
2 stories. It was a whole thing. So you're definitely getting your steps in. But it does sound like it takes a certain level of physical stamina.
It's something to keep in mind for sure. But again, it's all about how you approach it.
Right.
Instead of thinking about it as just physical labor, you're actively preserving something. You're playing a part in making sure these spaces are around for years to come.
I like that. It's like you said, it's active preservation.
Right.
You're a guardian of history. You're making sure that these buildings and all the traditions that they represent are going to be around for, a long time. But RoleCatcher, they also mentioned another possible downside. Limited opportunities for professional development.
Yeah.
Especially outside of a religious institution. How big of a deal is that?
That's a good point. It's true that traditionally a verger's career path, it has been kind of linear.
Yeah.
You move up in the same church or maybe in the same denomination, but the skills that you learn as a verger, those are useful in a lot of different places.
Okay. Transferable skills. Now, those are some words I like to hear. So tell me a little bit more about that. How do those skills that you learn as a verger, how do they actually translate to other kinds of jobs?
Well, just think about it for a second. You're managing events, right? You're
Yeah.
keeping track of budgets and you're dealing with the unexpected all the time.
Right.
Those are things that are valuable no matter where you work.
Yeah.
So, think hospitality, event planning,
Okay.
business administration, even project management.
It's you're getting this crash course in running a small business.
Right.
But instead of selling, whatever, widgets or something,
Right.
you're creating this space for something much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, and let's not forget those interpersonal skills we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Being able to stay calm when things get a little crazy. Being able to navigate those really sensitive situations and, being able to talk to all kinds of different people.
Right.
Those are important no matter what you do.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? You go into a job interview and they ask you, tell me about a time that you dealt with a difficult situation. And you're like, Oh, well, one time there was a minor crisis during a wedding ceremony, and I handled it, you know, no problem. You're hired.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, seriously, the things you learn as a verger, those are things employers want.
Yeah. So if everyone out there is thinking, oh, this Verger thing is kind of cool, or even just, wow, those skills could be really good for like my own career, where can they go to learn more about this?
Well, I mean, obviously, RoleCatcher is a great place to start. They've got those in-depth guides, not just for vergers, but all kinds of careers.
Right.
But then they also have those tools to help you, figure out what your skills are, what you're
Yeah.
good at, and, help you write your resume and stuff.
It's like having like a career coach and like a cheerleader all in one, which is really cool. I really like that RoleCatcher. They give you the tools to kind of take control of your own like career path wherever you are. And hey, maybe you'll find out that you're like super passionate about something you'd never even thought of before, like maybe being a verger.
It's definitely a road less traveled,
Yeah.
but like we've seen today, it's got its own rewards. It can help you grow, like personally and professionally.
I think we both went into this thinking verger, okay,
Yeah.
but it's been actually really fascinating to like kind of, peel back the curtain and see like what it really takes.
Right. It's so much more than it seems.
Yeah.
And, if there's one thing I hope people listening like take away from all of this is don't downplay the importance of transferable skills.
Yeah.
The stuff you learn, it doesn't matter if it's volunteering or, a hobby you have or even just like running your house, like all of that can be helpful in your job.
That's so true. It's all about figuring out what those skills are, getting better at them, and then like showing them off.
Exactly.
Who knows? Like you never know.
And on that note, I'm going to leave everyone with one final thought, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So the Verger, we've learned that they're kind of like hidden in plain sight, right?
Yeah.
And that reminds us that like tradition and being modern, those things aren't like separate. They work together.
Yeah.
Just like a verger kind of bridges the gap between, the sacred and the everyday. Maybe we can all do that in our own lives. Like be open to new stuff, but also respect like tradition and the things that, that are important to us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like you said, sometimes those like unexpected paths, those can be the ones that are the most, I don't know, the most fulfilling.
Right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for, taking this deep dive with us today.
Of course. It was my pleasure.
This was great.